Buffalo After Dark is proud to recommend I Barbecue for You. Pre-orders are suggested by calling 716-880-7667. I Barbecue for You, Buffalo's new barbecue destination.
Just move the coyotes. Don't do another expansion.
Right? It never crossed my mind. So somebody called the house when I was out mowing the grass.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Holy shit, your face is like purple.
Are you still up? Now in your fifth season, it's Buffalo After Dark.
Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. We are back after our nice little time away for the last 2 weeks. But of course, it is January 8th, 2025, our first show in 2025. And we're one away from episode 200.
Oh, man. First off, salutations, Mr. Wojak.
Yes. How the fuck did we last this long on this show? 5 years and almost 200 episodes later.
You know why? Because we're a bunch of damn idiots.
Yeah. Seriously, man. But hey, how was your time away?
It was good. How was yours?
Not bad. Not bad at all. So it was nice just to kind of relax, enjoy some time, not think about too much. Of course, we finally saw the Sabres get out of that 13-game losing streak, only to go back into a losing streak, only to win again the other night, which we'll talk about. But at least we have playoff football finally, and that'll be one of the things that will kick off the show today. So at least that's one good thing. And
Absolutely.
And on top of that, while Broncos fans were chanting that we want Buffalo, well, guess what? You got us.
Absolutely. But before we get to it, I should let everyone know that Santa was good with me this year, and he got me a brand new USB microphone with headsets. So if I sound too loud, then have Tom know, and or myself for that matter, and I'll make changes for the next episode.
All right, cool. Yeah, and otherwise, everything else has been going good. So, yeah, yesterday marked the 13th year I've had my Jeep. So, that thing's still doing good. So, no issues with that, at least for the most part. So that's that. But I was going to say, if anyone has a tip on whether I should go with a Chevy Tahoe, a GMC Yukon, or a Nissan Armada, or whatever else for a large three-row SUV, feel free to drop a comment in the chat.
Yeah, because he's looking for a new car for like the 30th time.
Yeah, either that or full-size pickup with 4 doors and a full-size cab.
Most certainly.
But probably take the SUV, so who knows? And Lord knows what's going to happen when I come down to see you later this summer and what SUV I'm getting this time around or what trucks, so...
Oh, God. I hate life already.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Let's see. It's like the times I've been to your place now, which is a couple. Other than the one time I flew into JFK and I rented that piece of shit Mitsubishi SUV, which wasn't that great. I mean, although, let's see, the Wagoneer and followed up by the Expedition. So that's not too bad.
Well, it was 6 years ago?
Well, the first one was, yeah.
Yeah, 2019. So that was like 6 years ago. I can't say 5 because, well, we're in 2025
right.
now. So
we had the pandemic, so obviously that screwed up a lot of stuff, but...
It did.
Yeah. But no, the Wagoneer and then the XP. So now it's just see what happens for this year. We'll find out.
Only time will tell.
Yes.
And like I said, here is the new microphone. It is USD. It's a USB microphone. It has LED lights from the microphone all the way around, and it has some adjustments and got me some plugs. So my audio is probably going to feel different when I talk moving forward. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we get to the Bills game.
Nice. So, and we already got one of our longtime friends in the chat, Brad, down in Louisville. Hey, by the way, Brad, congrats on getting your new house. So, glad to hear everything's going well with you too. And he already threw a vote for the Armada in, which is actually one of the ones I'm really considering. So,
there you go.
So good stuff, man. Good stuff. I might have, and Brett, I might have to talk to you offline too, just see how you like that rental. So good stuff. But in the meantime, if you want to jump on, we are live on YouTube and Facebook, so feel free to drop a line in the chat, and we'll go through it. And we're here for probably about another hour and a half. So let's get on to it. But first off, the Bills and the Patriots, the game that nobody gave two shits about, unless you're Gerard Mayo, who just got fired for throwing the game and losing the first round pick. And now you're picking fourth.
Congratulations, you dumb bastards.
Yeah. only to be replaced by Mike Vrabel, most likely, with the nice little Black Monday. And of course, it's no secret Robert Kraft wanted Vrabel, but Bill Belichick had it in his contract that Gerard Mayo gets the nod, and obviously the team went backwards. But let's see, Josh Allen continues his starting streak, so that's good. Von Miller got paid 3 snaps in, got his sack for $1.5 million. Let's see, Sam Martin got a bonus for punts inside the 20. There were a few other bonuses, but yet, of course, when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones is like, "Oh, I didn't know his contract had that. Otherwise, I would have kept him in." Fuck you, Jerry Jones. You cheap bastard. You know it's like you didn't want to pay him, so of course, it is what it is. But anyways, that being said, I mean, Trubisky looked pretty decent. I mean, the second and third line players actually looked pretty decent. So nothing bad, but going into it, we're pretty healthy, which is a big plus. And now the real fun starts. The Denver Broncos are getting what you wanted, but on the same side, Broncos fans don't be surprised if the door hits you on the ass on the way out.
Right. Well, my first comment about the Bills Patriots game, I was one of those people that was like expecting them to lose in a way because I was like, I don't think they really like care if
Mhm.
they lose. I think they only cared about knocking the Patriots out from the first overall. So a lot of people, myself included, were probably like, "No, please stop. What are you doing? You're losing. Why would you do that?" Things like that. Like very, very little enthusiasm, but I didn't
Mhm.
care. It was
Yeah.
the fucking backups. It's not like they were like gonna lose playing time anyway. Like I understand that some of these guys don't really get a chance to really like showcase their skills, and I understand that. But this was the fucking backups of all things.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't bad enough, Joe Milton, who played 95% of the game, is getting requests to be traded from
Right.
other
He
teams.
actually looked better than Drake May.
Yeah, sincerely. Imagine being a backup, a practice squad quarterback who, for some reason, outperforms Drake May, but I think at the same time they didn't want to risk him getting hurt. And it's like,
Mhm.
what's the point?
Right.
So you play Joe Milton, and you're thinking, okay, maybe he's not as bad as I thought. And I said to myself was, you know what? This is perfect because all he's doing is that he's showing his skills and he's helping the Patriots fucking up their own tank.
Yeah, and they did. So props to Milton for screwing them out of the first round pick.
Mm-hmm. And the winner of the Tank Bowl sweepstakes this year is dot 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 the Tennessee Titans.
Ah, okay. And of course, as part of it, the New York Giants, Dayball and their GM are going to stay around another year, which I'm kind of surprised because there was so much talk about getting them fired, especially after letting Saquon Barkley go and screwing up the whole thing with Danny Dimes.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of chatter. But did you see the overall entire like top 10 for the draft?
Yeah, and this is not a draft where there's a lot of good players in it.
Oh no, definitely not. But for those who haven't heard, the top 10 for the 2025 NFL draft, which is set to take place in Green Bay in April, the order is Tennessee, Cleveland, and the Giants. That's your top three. Then you have the Patriots and the Jaguars. That's your top five. Then you have the Raiders, the Jets, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Bears. So that's your entire top 10.
Oy.
Yeah. So here's my prediction. I don't think the Titans are keeping the pick. I think they're going to trade it to a team that's desperate for a quarterback, like the Raiders. I wouldn't be surprised if they work out a deal.
Mhm.
Cleveland. Are you really shocked by Cleveland?
No, and even funnier, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. Good old Deshaun Watson, he had a nice little setback in his rehab stint. It's like the football gods are giving him bad karma.
He has legitimately the worst contract in the history of sports.
Okay, what's worse? Watson's contract or the Rick DiPietro contract going back?
They're not even the same. I think the Watson one, because he had allegations in those cases,
Right.
DP just outright sucked.
Yeah, well, Watson had all that guaranteed money up front, too.
Yeah, and he also had 26 cases of sexual assault on him.
Yep. And after
Like
settling
that's
it, there was more.
yep. So in a way, his contract is probably worse.
Right.
So there's that. And then of course you have the Giants who don't shock me at this point. I don't see them drafting a quarterback unless the Browns are stupid. and they don't draft a quarterback. Well, let's be honest. There's only two that are available in the top 10 this year, or just in the first round. You have Shador Sanders out of Colorado, and you have Cam Ward out of Miami. Now, the question is, are any of them going to be good?
No,
You don't think so?
I don't think it's a QB draft.
It really isn't. But I do think it's all about the blue, as in the Michigan Wolverines.
Hmm.
I think
Right.
I think projectively, I think there are five starters from the Michigan Wolverines that I believe are playing in the national championship game or at least competing for it. I don't watch college ball, but I know five of them are in the draft this year.
Yeah. Well, Michigan's a powerhouse team. I mean, they're one of the schools that's like an NFL factory basically. You look at them, you look at Alabama, and you look at some of the other schools like Miami, of course. I mean, they just pump out players.
They do.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this year for a QB draft, yeah, not a good one.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But that being said, I mean, we ended up having a lot of fun with Black Monday because it didn't even wait till Black Monday. Gerard Mayo was the first one fired, and it was immediately after we ended up causing them to win, which was even better. And how much do you want to say? How much do you want to think that Robert Kraft knew he was going to fire them all along because with Mike Vrabel now interviewing with the Patriots, it's like that's our guy.
Basically, you know what I love about this whole ordeal, Tom, is remember when Belichick stepped down and then immediately Mayo got the contract because it was
Yeah,
said, quote, there was a contract that was, or there was a thing in this deal
yeah,
that said that it would give him the guarantee deal to be the coach.
yeah. And what happened? The team went backwards with the same personnel.
The Patriots literally went backwards the moment Belichick resigned.
Hmm. Right. And my own thoughts about Belichick. I mean, I think his value and how he gets in the Hall of Fame is all overrated because I think it was all Brady that did the majority of it because Belichick sucked before Brady and he sucks after Brady. So
Well, that explains why he's going to be coaching college football.
right. Yeah, especially since no NFL team wanted him. So
No, definitely not. But I do think though the whole Gerard Mayo thing is funny as hell because you pretty much fired a guy that you were hoping that would turn into your new Belichick, and it turned
mhm.
out to be a complete shit show. And
Yeah,
it got to the point now where the Patriots and you're the guy to be asking this question is. Do you think that if the allegations are true of the Patriots potentially hiring Mike Vrabel, do you think the Patriots would become this new boys club,
probably.
like in the level of the Buffalo Sabres?
I think they do because here you go. Here's another New England retread. Look at all the people that have gone through the Bill Belichick tree that have basically come back to New England after they've left for some time. And I mean, I will say Vrabel's not a bad coach on his own,
No.
but the Bill Belichick coaching tree is not a good coaching tree. It seriously isn't.
You know, now that I think about it, yeah, you're right. Vrabel is from the Belichick tree, and he
Right.
played for and he played for the Patriots 20
Exactly.
years
Just
ago.
like Mayo did. So it yeah, it's. I mean, the only coach that's had some success besides Vrabel. I mean, if you look at Bill O'Brien, who was under Belichick, also. I mean, he had some success, but he hasn't been back to the NFL since.
Oh, the butt chin?
Yeah, really.
That's what I call him, the butt chin.
Yeah. I mean, anyone from the Bill Belichick tree sucks for the most part. I mean, now anyone from the Andy Reid coaching tree, which that's what Sean McDermott falls under, for the most part, they've actually been very successful.
Yeah, I can't argue that. But it's just funny to me because the Patriots are now at the point they're so incompetent. Robert Kraft is losing his marbles little by little to the point where he's like, you know what? I have to bring back former Patriots. Got to keep interest going, right?
Hmm.
So here's what I think is going to happen, and this will blow your mind. Ready? Ready?
Hmm.
You're going to bring back Mike Vrabel, and then down the road, they're going to fire him, and they're going to say to Drew Bledsoe, "Hey, do you want to coach this team, even as hot garbage as we are at like 3-15?" No, sir, I do not want to do that.
Here, you want to hear something crazier? Bring back either they go ahead and bring back Matt Patricia, which he's just absolute ass as a
Fuck
coach.
no. He was a good defensive coordinator in during the Belichick era.
Right. But then, for whatever reason, they decided to flip him that one year, and then it turned out to be absolute garbage on the field.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was an offensive coordinator one year.
Yeah, and that didn't go well. I can tell you that.
Oh God, yeah, the Patriots are slowly becoming what the Bills were in the 2000s.
Yeah, very true. Or here's another option that you could always take a look at. Or they decide to bring back Josh McDaniels.
Oh God, could you imagine they do? Well, I mean, in a way, they don't need Josh McDaniel because they already have Alex Van Pelt,
hmm
with former Bills QB. They don't need Josh McDaniel. Now, if he comes in as like a consultant, then I would question it. But I don't know. I feel like the Patriots are now going to become the new boys club in football.
Right. Yeah. But if you want to really go deeper into the coaching tree, you interested to hear all the people that are under that Bill Belichick coaching tree?
Who?
So we already talked about Bill O'Brien. We already talked about Josh McDaniel. Nick Saban, who's basically out of the NFL.
Nick
Brian.
Saban hasn't coached in the NFL in almost 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Brian Flores is actually one of the only good coaches out of there.
True, but I don't think that he's trying to be Belichick. I think he's
Right.
just trying to be Brian Flores. But I would not be surprised if he lands an NFL coaching job.
Right, and I think he should be able to land one at some point. Then you look at Al Groh, who coached the New York Jets in 2000, who that's basically the only time he had any NFL coaching experience. Brian Daboll, another one under Bill Belichick, and of course, somehow he survived Black Monday. Eric Mangini, another one. Romeo Crennel. And then, of course, Joe Judge, who most recently got fired from the Giants.
Most likely, that's the odds of that happening.
Ugh. It's like, that is one shitty coaching tree.
You're not kidding.
I mean, everyone except for Belichick has done nothing but lost.
Seriously,
So,
it's insane. But another coach that got fired was what's his face? Doug Peterson. Doug
yeah,
Peterson got fired.
yeah, that's no surprise.
Yeah, but we saw this coming though. But I do want to touch up on Mike Vrabel for a little bit.
Yeah.
So you heard about the rumors about the Jets, right?
Oh, yeah, so they're going to interview Rex Ryan.
Well, yeah, they've already finished it. But no, that's not what I was going to say. So Mike Vrabel had interest with the Jets, and it was reported by multiple sources. Remember the whole Tyreek Hill thing a few years
Yeah.
ago where he got traded to Kansas City
hmm
to Miami,
Yeah.
and it was down to them and the Jets?
hmm
Mike Vrabel just did the exact same thing, but except with the Dolphins, he used the Patriots. So Mike Vrabel's interest with the Jets was reportedly a smokescreen to put pressure on New England to make a move. So basically, Mike Vrabel was low key saying, "If you fire your coach, I'll use the Jets to bait them into thinking they'll hire me, and I'll come
Right.
to you guys."
Nicely played, Vrabel.
Oh my goodness. He wants to be a Pat. It's not surprising.
Yeah, he's wanted that for a long time. So, I mean, I would expect probably within the next week that Vrabel probably gets the nod.
I think he at least deserves it, considering that he did play for the team. He won a couple of Super Bowls, and I think if I remember correctly, wasn't he the linebacker coach?
I thought he was.
I could have sworn he was, because I know he won a couple of more after he before he became the coach of Tennessee. I
hmm
know that. But do I think that he's going to be the same coach as he was with the Titans? Hell no. I
Right.
just think I think Vrabel only gets the job because of fan service. That's the only reason
hmm
why I think the Patriots would even consider entertaining the idea of getting Mike Vrabel. But
Right.
that's just me personally.
Yeah. Yeah. But it gets interesting, though. So, I mean, obviously, earlier in the season, we know Robert Salo was fired. Obviously, Dennis Allen was fired from the Saints. Aberfluss was the big one right before the season wrapped up because, of course, Eberfluss was like, "Oh, if I had to do it again, I would do it again."
Yeah, and that's why you're not. That's
That's why
why
you're
you're
not
not
a
an NFL
coach.
buddy.
Exactly. And he sucked ass anyways. Then, of course, Gerard Mayo immediately after winning against the Bills, which nobody gives a shit about that game. Then, of course, Doug Peterson was the first one on Monday. And then this one's not a surprise because, and it's interesting, the players wanted Antonio Pierce so bad. Well, he crashed and burned in his one season, so.
It's kind of embarrassing in its own right, considering that I remember when the Raiders a couple years ago they made the mistake of firing Rich Picacia, and then I
Mhm.
think he became the special team coach for the Packers with Matt LaFleur, and then Antonio Pierce gets the job, and they're like, "No, please don't fire him. He's a great players coach," and yet they give him a full year, and he crashed and burned.
Yeah, exactly. And to the Raiders' credit, they actually let him do his end of season press conference before they fired him. So I'll give him that. But God, for the Raiders though, how many head coaches are you still paying?
Yeah, and you know what too? I forgot about this, and it's going to play an impact. Is Tom Brady has minority ownership of the
Right.
Raiders. So whoever the Raiders hire as their next coach, he's going to have a say.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah, just crazy to see it. But
If I mean, if I was an NFL coach and I saw that the Raiders were available and I found out Tom Brady was the minority owner, who am I taking advice from? Am I taking advice from Brady or am I going to take advice from Mark Davis?
it's a good question. I'd probably take it from Brady.
Exactly. So I think whoever gets the job, kudos to them. But Brady has to understand that, yeah, I know that you're the minority owner and you work on Fox,
Hmm.
as an analyst or whatever,
Yeah,
or color commentator, but you have a big job ahead of you. So you better be careful what you ask for because, well, things could very well change.
hmm, yes, they could. Yes, they could. And then, anyone want to speculate where Doug Peterson ends up? Because that's going to be an interesting one. Because he crashed and burned in Philly. He crashed and burned in Jacksonville now.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think he's going to go to the Bears.
That could be a good landing spot for him, quite honestly. I
It
mean,
very well could. I mean, it wouldn't shock me.
yeah. I mean, it very well could
It wouldn't.
happen.
Well, I think with Petey, there's a sense that he could coach the Bears, but you also have to remember something. They also have a young Caleb Williams who's going to be entering his second year,
Hmm.
and then they have all these weapons. But it's not even a guarantee what if the current Bears that they have on the team now is going to be any good next year. Because Doug Peterson has outright proven that he is not a capable NFL coach. And
Right.
even when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago, he thrived on that team. It was really good timing. But with
Hmm.
Jacksonville, it was just more of like a okay kind of a moment. After 3 years, I think it's enough time to fire a coach. So
Yeah.
I think for Petey to leave Jacksonville and possibly go to a place like Chicago is very well the possibility, possibly in the cards.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Miami Dolphins. Their owner actually put out a statement and they said um, their coach is safe for at least one more year. But Tyreek Hill was channeling his inner AB, and basically it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, I'm probably not coming back for all intents and purposes. He was talking about wanting out.
Oh yeah, for certain. And the funny thing is that Tyreek Hill went into a press conference, I think after they lost to the Jets, and it was like, guys, I don't want to be here anymore. I want out. And everyone's like, yeah, where are you gonna go, Tyreek? You pulled this shit before a few years ago,
Hmm.
and now you're doing it again. And then like the day or two after those comments were made, there were reports, I think, from the Miami Dolphins from Adam Schefter. He might just be covering his ass. I'm not sure. But Tyreek Hill allegedly said that he actually he steamed down since that game, and he said he does not want to be traded. But the issue is he already said it.
Yeah. And now it's like, if you're a Dolphins fan, it's like, okay, what do we do with this guy? I mean, he hasn't really panned out as much as we wanted. Or if you're that asshole Tyler Tarabaccia or whatever the fuck his name is, it's like, oh, the Dolphins are gonna die because Tyreek Hill wants out.
Yeah, and Frank
Holy
Fleming's having a
shit! I
fucking heart
actually
attack.
sounded, yeah. I was like, holy shit! I actually sounded like Tyler for a moment there.
Yeah, you did. And
Yeah.
then what was the other one I was gonna say? Oh, sorry, Nikki Smokes. Nicky Smokes was another Dolphins fan. He's like, you know what? Tua's fucking this team over. Tyreek is fucking this team over. Stephen Ross is like 85 years old. He doesn't want to sell the team. You don't have much time left on this earth, and you want to win a goddamn fucking championship?
Oh, it's bad karma when Stephen Ross fired Brian Flores. Going back to
Oh
that.
yeah, definitely.
Oh
And
yeah, that
somebody,
team's been ass ever since.
oh yeah, and people are saying, "Oh, Brian Flores was the issue, not Tua." I'm like, Mike McDaniel is
Mhm.
not a coach. If
Right.
anything, he's more of like the restaurant's busboy. He's cleaning up the dishes after all the
hmm
customers.
Yeah, he's the restaurant's weed smoker. It's like you ever watch a press conference and how like weird he sounds on that. It's like holy Christ, dude. It's like if I was surprised about anything, it's probably our friend Luffy probably giving him skunk weed or something to make him sound even worse.
Yeah, I wish it were colder.
Yeah. I wish it were colder. It's like we're gonna show up for all these games, and yeah, I don't know what Tyreek's doing, but it's like, or the one time when he ended up having his kid in the press conference, is like, I got my kid here, so I gotta be nice, but I'll answer any questions you want. It's like, dude, it's like either you sound like you're like smoking so much weed that you don't even know what the hell you're doing. You sound like a freaking pedo, or I don't know what else to say.
There's not much to
Dude
say
looks
about him.
weird. Yeah.
The only thing we need to know now is the Miami Dolphins are a complete joke,
hmm
considering that yes, they made the playoffs within those 2 years with Mike McDaniel, which I give them credit for. But the thing is, honestly, at this point, the Dolphins outright deserve what's coming for them
Yeah.
because all they did for the last 2 years, 3 years, since they got freaking Tyreek, really, was all they talked about was how they were going to be so much better than the Bills, and they were being all cocky and shit. And the next thing you know, the Bills outright obliterate them for the AFC East title this year, and then down 3 games, they came all the way back and
Yeah.
stole the division from the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And then Miami, what did they have to show for? Oh, I don't know, 2 early first round exits, one in Buffalo and one in Kansas City,
Yeah.
and you get obliterated in both of them. And the one game you were supposed to win this year, you lose to fucking Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Yeah. And we might have seen Aaron Rodgers last game, so.
Yeah, so your character is gonna have to retire soon.
Oh yeah, the Professor Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that your little character has to retire soon. That's if he hangs up the cleats, because that's like it. At that point, it's like that's it. I can't say it anymore.
Right, right. All right. Well, speaking of Professor Aaron Rodgers, here he is. Hi, everybody. This is Professor Aaron Rodgers, and yeah, we came to another disappointing end of the season. But it wasn't my fault. It was everyone else around me who decided not to show up and basically made me look bad all year. My knee was good, but it was all because of having all that ayahuasca last year, which of course made everything a little bit better. But of course, with Robert Sala being gone, and now we have, and of course, which thanks to Salah, I purposely made sure your ass was fired so I could keep Hackett another year. The rest of the team actually sucked ass, and it's all on them. It's not on me. I am the anointed one. But if anyone thinks I'm going to retire, here's one thing I gotta say: is like you can take that out of the tank because I got a lot left to give. I am not retiring.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably what's going to happen. He's going to probably pull up Mark Henry from the WWE and say he's got more left in the tank. I'm like, dude, you're 40 years old. Retire already. You already got a Super Bowl win.
By the way, you know who else is turning into a fucking joke this year besides the Dolphins in terms of the coaches and GM? The
Mm.
Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, sweet Jesus. I was to say, Trevor, if you're listening, I know Wednesday nights you're doing stuff with the Bandits, which actually I'm going to be at the Bandits game on the 18th. So if I do see you there, definitely let me know. But with that, and good for Trevor too. He's actually, I think he's working with with Odyssey now or Entercom, one of the stations. But no, it's yeah, the Indianapolis Colts. They're keeping their GM tandem. They're keeping their coaching. I don't know what to say about them other than they underperform.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what's funny though too is I look back at everything with the Dolphins and the Colts. It's like they're both equally the same in my opinion, except the only difference is you have a dipshit of an owner who thought that Andrew Luck's injuries were fake, and you have an
hmm
old ass man who is too involved and just literally just let this, ship just float to the ground like the Titanic. It's
hmm
it's a joke, honestly.
Yeah, and it's like you know, either team could get better and they just don't. That's like one of the things I look at, and especially now on Miami's side of things, it's like Stephen Ross. I mean, do yourself a favor, get a different owner because obviously you have no clue what the hell's going on. Get yourself a real head coach because Mike McDaniel is not a real head coach in my opinion, and maybe you rebuild your defensive line and you add to your offensive starters because Mike McDaniel's philosophy is like, oh, we're just going to outscore them. What, in Madden?
Yeah,
I
really.
mean, seriously.
Oh yeah.
What are you
Did
gonna,
we talk?
what are you gonna
Speaking
do?
of,
But do like a fake punt on 4th and 13 every single time and get your touchdown yards that way? It's like, come on.
yeah, did we talk about a few weeks ago? And correct me if I'm wrong, but did we talk about, speaking of Madden, because you mentioned it,
Mhm.
didn't we talk about the story about how the Jerry Judy trade that got axed by the Jets because of the
Yeah,
whole Matt? We did.
yeah, we did talk about that. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah, that and it just when you said Madden, that's what I think of now.
Yeah,
Um, but as far as Tyreek Hill goes, there already have been five teams linked to him in trade offers this offseason. Would you like to hear them?
sure.
All right, you have number one, the Falcons. Number two, the Ravens. Number three, the Packers. Number four, the Commanders. And number five, the Chargers.
Okay, so not bad destinations. I would say Atlanta's going to probably be in a little bit more of a rebuilding year. Packers, I think it'll definitely help with their
Current
passing
core.
game. So I mean that'll be good. Chargers, same thing. It'll help with their core. Washington gives Jaden Daniels another weapon, so that certainly can be helpful. Except you just have to hook that Tyreek Hill is not a diva like Stephon Diggs is, and then which that's debatable. And then you said the other team was
Who would I say? The Ravens?
the Ravens. Oof, that would give. Ooh, they'd be stacked.
They would be, but I don't see Baltimore getting him. I think of all the teams, I think the Chargers have the best shot to get Tyreek because they could really use a wide receiver.
Yeah, they do need another one. So
Yeah. The other thing too that I should mention is that by the time next season starts, Tyreek will be 31 years old, going on
mm,
32.
yeah. And how many kids does he have now?
Tyreek, I think he's got like 12.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, dude, he's got like three or four baby mamas.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So.
Yeah.
Alright.
Oh,
Uh.
and one more thing about the Dolphins before we go on
Mhm.
is there was a comment that I found on King of Finland on X, and it was a quote by Mike McDaniel, and I want to see if this relates to anything that's been going on lately. He said, quote, there were multiple players, according to Mike McDaniel, there were multiple players who repeatedly were late for meetings, and these players were fined every time they were late, but the findings, quote, did not move the needle the way it needs to, and they will address how to discipline this going forward. And McDaniel also mentioned that establishing a culture of having players who want to be here and want to be full participants for all activities if necessary.
Oh wow! So that means Mike McDaniel lost total control of the locker room, which we already knew about 2 years ago. He just decides to finally get a fire lit under his ass because now he almost has to in order to save his job.
Well, I think Chris Greer is a little bit more guilty than Mike McDaniel, considering that he was there longer than McDaniel.
Mm.
Because this was the guy that basically hired Brian Flores and drafted Tua and all that. I don't even know how long Chris Greer's been the GM with the Dolphins for. I
A
actually
long
want to look
time.
that up real quick.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna do the research real quick. So Chris Greer, I found it. He's been the GM of the Miami Dolphins since 2016.
Okay, so 9 years now.
Yeah, and get this, he was a scout for the Dolphins 25 years ago. Then in 2003, he was the assistant director of college scouting. Then he became the director of college scouting from 2007 to 2015, and then got named general manager.
Oh boy, so yeah, he's probably the old boys club over there.
Yeah, and by the way, he was also an intern for the Patriots 30 years ago.
Hmm. Jesus.
Yeah, how is this gonna work?
It won't. So, and we do have some news from NFL Network. So, of course, the new head coach of University of North Carolina, Bill Belichick, has heard from multiple teams, including Tom Brady about coming back to coach.
Yeah, but he already signed a contract with North Carolina.
He just has to pay North Carolina $10 million and he's out.
Well, let's see. I mean, if the hoodie does come back and he wants to coach the Raiders just because of the influence of Brady, then so be it. But it won't be the same.
Yep. But yeah, apparently the teams that he's being tied to, other than the Raiders, Jacksonville is interested in bringing him on board as well. So right now, what ends up happening is that if he were to leave UNC, it's a $10 million buyout. So basically, he gives the school $10 million. See ya. I can say I was a coach, had a perfect record at 0-0, and back to the NFL.
Yep. Oh, remember how I said earlier before I completely forgot about this. Were the Jets were one of the teams interested in Belichick?
No, the Jaguars.
Jaguars, I knew that, but I was hoping the Jets would be in here because this actually would describe the Jets in a nutshell. Remember that whole Jerry Judy, Matt Ring thing?
Yep.
Woody Johnson actually replied to the comments that were made about that topic.
Oh God, what did he say?
Oh God, yeah. I'm gonna read it now. So this was from yesterday, actually. And Woody Johnson calls the Athletics article saying that he allows his kids to influence his decision making for the team called a typical smear piece. He told the New York Post. He said, quote, I think the article is a typical smear piece, up-sustained. Nobody really stood up and put their name on anything. It's absolutely untrue, and everything was out of context. When you're losing games, it gives people the artistic license to kind of do what they want. So, translation, I don't know what I'm doing, and I do let my sons influence the team. And by the way, who the fuck names their son Brick?
Yeah, really. Was he drunk?
I honestly don't know.
Oy. Yeah, it's interesting. But here's another thing that's also interesting too. So of course the Chicago Bears wanted to interview Mike McCarthy, and Jerry Jones said no.
Well, that's not the only thing the Bears are tripping on now. So, because Mike McCarthy is most likely out of the race, if Mike McCarthy does not fall on their face, which clearly it has so far, they have two options. He can either wait January 14th, which is the day of McCarthy's contract ends, and then he's open to talking to whoever, or B, take a trade for a coach, and three names have already come up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being said that Bears GM Ryan Poles says that trading draft picks for a head coach is on the table. And the three coaches that are being linked into this conversation are Kevin O'Connell, Mike Tomlin, and Kyle Shanahan.
Ooh, so Tomlin, I doubt would leave Pittsburgh because he's been there forever now, and plus he just re-upped a deal. O'Connell, that would be a tough one because I mean, look at him and the Vikings right now. I mean, they're in the playoffs, and then the other one you mentioned was
Kevin O'Connell, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike Tomlin.
well, I know a lot of 49ers fans want Shanahan out.
Well, they've already fired their offensive coordinator and defense coordinator. Nick Sorensen is gone. And there's talk of Navarro Bowman. Yes, the Niners legend Navarro Bowman to be the defensive coordinator. Yeah, the last time they had a former NFL player become a head coach, I'm pretty sure he did pretty damn decent for himself in Houston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then if you look at position coaches, I mean, look at Byron Leftwich. He wasn't the greatest QB, but he actually turned out to be a pretty decent coach.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, same thing with Alex Van Pelt, career backup, but he's actually a good QB coach.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so that part's interesting. But that being said, let's talk about the playoffs because now we're finally in the real season. And
Yes.
we got some big games that are coming up, obviously. So one of the things that we have, of course, Saturday, we have the Chargers and the Texans and the Steelers and the Ravens. And I can say Steelers and Ravens, that's going to be a bloodbath, as it usually is.
Well, I figured, Tom, because this is the playoffs and really we get really one opportunity to do a prediction. So because we don't really get that kind of a chance, why don't we do a prediction? What do you think?
Yeah, let's go for it. So
I actually have the bracket in my hand.
Nice. So yeah, let's go for it.
I'll ask you first, and you can ask me, just so we don't
All
get
right.
each other confused.
All right, so I'm gonna start on the AFC side. If Chargers and Texans, I'm gonna give the nod to the Chargers on this one because Houston's banged up right now. I think the Chargers are a sneaky good team, And knowing the issues that the Texans have right now, especially at wide receiver with Diggs being out, they only have Collins right now, and they're also banged up on their secondary. So I would say the Chargers are going to edge them out. Steelers and Ravens, I pray the Steelers win so we can whoop their ass in the playoffs because I absolutely don't want to face the Ravens. And then obviously Bills and Broncos, I am taking the Bills in that one.
That's not surprising at all. Yeah, sorry. I was getting the other side of the conference.
Yep. Yep.
So for me, I'm gonna say for the AFC, um, I'm gonna take the Chargers over the Texans. I think the Chargers will do fine over in that area. I mean, Houston's banged up to the core, like we've been saying for a little while now, and everybody's hurt. Diggs is out, Tank Dell is out. Their defense is decimated. Stroud is not as good as he was last year.
Mhm.
So really, honestly, yeah, Houston is a serviceable team, but I think them and they're one. I think the Texans are right now like one of the worst teams going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So I'm definitely taking the Chargers on this one. Ravens and Steelers. You said Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, and that's just because I do not want to be facing the Ravens at all in this playoff.
That's understandable, but I'm picking the Ravens because, well, I think Baltimore is much better at home. Pittsburgh looked like shit against the Bengals.
Yeah, they
They
did.
completely shot themselves in the foot. Their playmaking has just not been great this year. And I think the only way Pittsburgh has a shot at beating Baltimore is if Justin Fields starts.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
how I feel.
And of course, you got to limit Derrick Henry, which good luck.
Yeah, but I think with Pittsburgh, it's going to be a lot closer, but I think Baltimore pulls it off ultimately.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and then Broncos and Bills. I'm not going to say this is going to be easy because no playoff game is ever easy. Let's be honest.
Right.
So I do think Buffalo is going to pull this off. I mean, they usually have been for the last few years. And Denver doesn't really have any experience. The only person that has any experience is Sean Payton.
Right. And he quietly put together a good team this year after his first season with the Broncos. And I gotta say, for a rookie QB, Bo Nix actually had a good season.
Yeah, I like Bo Nix. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback in this league.
Yeah, he's a good fit for that team, and they can actually build an offense around him, which is great. So, I mean, I don't think it's not going to be a blowout by any means. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what we anticipate. But um, looking at it, I do think offensively the Bills have more than what the Broncos have at this point. I mean, Allen knows what to do. As long as Keon Coleman and our other receivers are on point, then that's going to be good. Amari Cooper is going to be back, so that's good. So we can
And
use
Terrell
him as a
Bernard.
weapon. Yep, Terrell Bernard is going to be back. Obviously, you have both tight ends that we can work with, so that's a big plus. And then the one thing that the Bills have to do defensively, we have to stop the run. There's no
Yes.
way around it. We have to stop the run because if we don't, we're screwed.
Yeah, I think they'll do fine though. But the big thing that Buffalo has going for them right now is home field advantage. Because I actually checked the weather for Buffalo for Sunday's game, compared that to Denver. Denver, I think right now is at 30 degrees. Like, yeah, it's cold in
Yep.
Denver, but it's nowhere near cold as like Buffalo. That I can definitely tell you that right now. So compared to weather-wise in Denver, Colorado, for Sunday, 34 degrees in Denver. That's
Hmm.
where the Broncos play.
Yeah.
But if you compare that to Buffalo coming into Sunday, it's going to be 31 degrees.
Okay, so 3 degree difference. I mean,
Well, the only difference is the altitude because Colorado is a warmer state than Western New York.
actually, Colorado sits at a mile high altitude
Yeah,
versus
that's
New.
the point.
Yeah,
That's the only
versus
reason
New
why.
York.
Well, yeah, you have Utah and you have Colorado, but they're within two states down of Texas, which is always hot down there.
Yeah, I mean, Denver knows how to play cold weather games. I mean, they've done it plenty of times, and I don't think that the cold will really affect them too much. At the same time, though, you get the swirling winds inside the current stadium here at Highmark. I mean, that can wreak some havoc with kickers. And one thing I will say, Tyler Bass, you better fucking show up.
Well, I mean, true. I think he will show up this year. I think emotionally he took a year off and he kind of just got himself back up. That's what I think it was.
Yeah.
But who knows at this point? But yes, I do think the Bills are going to win that game.
Okay.
So round two. So you said Pittsburgh and Buffalo in this case.
Yeah. So if I were to go Pittsburgh and
I'm sorry.
Buffalo,
I'm sorry. Chargers and Buffalo. My bad.
Yeah, so Chargers and Buffalo, I would say Buffalo's going to take it, and it's going to be a revenge game. Is basically what it's going to be, and I think with what Ray, well, actually, I kind of take that back. I mean, it's not necessarily a revenge game, but it is something where I think when you look at both offenses all together, I mean, Buffalo has the better QB. Running the run game is definitely a little bit better, I think, on our end. And then the other thing I'm also looking at is defensively, it's similar, but we have to stop the pass rush, and we also have to stop the run game. I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest things. We have to be able to handle that. So as long as we can, that's fine. Special teams needs to show up. I think overall our wide receiver core is similar to what the Chargers have. So I mean, I don't think there's too much of a difference there. But I do think ultimately it comes down to experience, and a lot of players on the Chargers right now haven't had a lot of playoff experience. It's kind of similar to what we've seen with Denver, except Denver is actually in a worse spot than what the Chargers are right now. So I do think the Bills would take it, and I think ultimately it would probably come down to a Bills versus Kansas City matchup for the AFC Championship.
Okay, so you think Casey's going to take care of business against the Steelers, and you said the Bills are going to beat the Chargers. So that would leave Buffalo and Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. So that's fair
Right.
enough.
Right.
So let's go to the NFC then. So we have the Eagles and the Packers.
Well, Jalen Hurts is was practicing today, so I think Jalen Hurts comes back, and I do think the Eagles will have enough to overtake the Packs. So I do think the Eagles will get the win in that first round. Commanders and Bucks, that's going to be an interesting matchup, and you figure Baker Mayfield, another playoff game, and he's done some good things with that team. And I will say, to Tampa's credit, they built an offense around him. And I got to say, the Browns are cursed after they got rid of him after that playoff win. So, but here's what I look at. I think the Commanders overall have a more potent offense, and Jaden Daniels has been doing a lot of good things this year. Plus, he can run the ball a lot more effectively as a dual threat quarterback compared to Mayfield. So, I would say the Commanders in an upset over Tampa, and then the Vikings and the Rams. I will say both teams are good, especially with what they can do offensively. But don't be surprised if the Rams end up bouncing the Vikings. And I will say this: I think the Vikings are just a little overrated.
I'm going to tend to agree. So you have the Vikings and the Lions. I'm sorry, you have the Rams and the let me think. So you said Eagles and you said Commanders, correct?
Yep.
So so Eagles at 2, Commanders are at 6, Rams at 4. Okay, I got it. So the Commanders would play the Lions and the Rams would play the Eagles in that situation.
Yeah. So Lions will smoke the Commanders. that I can say straight up. And David Montgomery is coming back.
This is also true. So you have the Lions going to the conference championship,
Mhm.
and then who else? You have Philadelphia and you have the Rams.
I would say it's going to be Philly over the Rams. And then I would say the Lions do have enough to beat Philly. They're one of the few teams I think that can beat them.
Okay. So you think the Lions are going to go to the Super Bowl?
I think that's very possible. The run that they've had this year and how they've played, and I've had a chance to see some of their games, they're up there with the Chiefs. They're up there with the Bills. And they are a very, very good team. And they have rebuilt that team real quick in the time that Campbell's been there. So it's nice to see they have a great run game. You look at their wide receiver core, they're in a great shape with that. Defensively, they're sound. Special teams is good. I mean, they're in a good spot. It's just they have to not shoot themselves in the foot, especially when it comes to play calling, and that's going to be one of the things that obviously they're going to take a look at. But I think Detroit has the ability to go all the way to the Super Bowl in this case, and honestly, I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. So for me, Eagles Packers, you said Philly earlier, right? I'm going to take the opposite. I'm taking the Packers.
Okay.
And I think it's because of the enigma that because remember when I think we both said Dallas last year when they played the Packers because we both expected Green Bay to get knocked down in the first round, and then
Yeah,
the Packers just came out of nowhere.
yeah, and they whooped the Cowboys' ass.
Yeah, it's the same fucking team. The only difference is Xavier McKinney is on the backbone, and Josh Jacobs. Their run game is much, much better now that Aaron Jones is not there anymore. But I think Green Bay ultimately wins that game, and I think it's going to come down to the arm of Jordan Love because that guy's not going to be 100%. But I think the real outcome is going to be who's the better running back in the series. Is it Saquon Barkley or is it Josh Jacobs? That's
Right.
going to be the question. And I think because Jacobs has hardly ever seen the playoffs, and neither has Saquon, I take the Packers just because I think their defense is going to show up. They're going to shut down Barkley, and that's what I think. They're going to ultimately upset them, and they're going to want revenge from Sao Paulo earlier in September. I'll say that for sure. And then Commanders and Bucks. This sounds like the right take to me, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think the Commanders pull off an upset over the Bucks. I think Tampa, Baker Mayfield is a good QB.
Mhm.
Mike Evans had over 1,000 receiving yards for the 11th
Yeah,
straight year.
great year.
Oh, which is Hall of Fame numbers, by the way.
Mhm.
But I think Jayden Daniels has the better accuracy, and he's a better runner than Baker. That's what I think.
Much more of a dual threat. And I mean, when you look at some of the games that Jaden Daniels has been in this year, I mean, some of the yards he's able to put up, especially running the ball, it's a legit dual threat that they have to worry about. And Tampa just does not have that in Mayfield. Now, Mayfield, really good QB, and I'm glad that he finally has a team that is his after all this time, because you look at all the crap he dealt with in Cleveland, you look at all the crap he dealt with since coming into the league, and now Tampa is his team. So it's good to see him finally doing some things with that, and they're building around him, which is great. But I still think Washington is going to get the best of them in it.
Yeah, and you know what? Even if Washington loses, there's nothing to be ashamed of because they have a very bright future.
They really do, and they rebuilt quick after getting Daniels in the draft. So good to see
Well,
it.
well, it's definitely a start, but I wouldn't say the rebuild's done because nobody expected them to go this far.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah, and they still have to add some players around them yet too. I mean, they still have to build out more of the offense, and they still have to get a little bit stronger defensively. But it's a great starting point for them.
oh yeah, no doubt. So I'm definitely taking the Commanders then. Vikings and Rams. I'm gonna take the Rams because they are more experienced than Minnesota, and Sam Darnold looked like absolute shit on Sunday night
Yeah.
against the Lions. So
Oh, he
I have
got
a
eaten alive by the Lions.
he got eaten in the Lions Den, and now he has to go up into the mountains, and they have to possibly get the shit kicked out of them in LA. And I do think that if things don't work out the way that it's intended to be because of the fire that's going on in Parasite right now, I think
Yeah.
what's it called? There was talks that they're going to move the game to Phoenix, Arizona, where the
Mhm.
Cardinals play, State Farm Arena or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Um, I think that if that's the outcome, I think the Rams are going to beat the Vikings. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, and hopefully, everything works out all right with the wildfires going on there, because I saw some of the coverage, and I mean, it's pretty nasty what's happened so far. But that being said, I mean, I still think the Rams, they have more than what the Vikings offer in this point.
Absolutely. So round two would be the Packers and the Lions. This is not even a contest. I think Detroit. I think it's going to be much closer than people think, but I think Detroit is going to pull it off in the end.
Yeah, same here, and especially getting Montgomery back. Now there is talk about Aiden Hutchinson coming back, and if that happens, oh, they got a huge weapon back.
On the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, yep,
That's so
huge.
instead of 19 people being on IR, it'd be 18.
Right, right. Yeah, how about this past Sunday when who was I'm trying to remember who exactly it was, but with Detroit, but he was playing with the carbon fiber cast on his arm.
Oh, I have no fucking clue. I didn't know. Well, I wish I knew that answer though. So while you're doing that, we have the Commanders and the Rams. You want to hear something crazy?
Oh, here it is. It was Alex Anzalone who ended up
That's
coming
what it
back.
was.
Yeah, and if you saw the picture he had tweeted out, oh my God, he had like probably about 20 or 30 stitches in his arm from where they put the plate in.
Oh yeah, for certain. But yeah. So Commanders and Rams. In
Hmm.
my honest to God opinion, I think the Commanders pull off an upset over the Rams in LA.
Ooh, okay.
I I think that's going to happen because here's the thing: the Rams are getting older. Stafford's 36 years old.
Yeah.
Cooper Cup is injury prone, and he's in his 30s. So that team is not the same, when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. I mean, yeah, they're a playoff team, but they're not a Super Bowl team, and neither is Washington. But the Commanders are a much younger team than LA. So I think with Jayden Daniels on their side, I think that's going to be a huge advantage to Washington. So I think they go into SoFi Stadium and they pull off an upset over the Rams.
Okay.
So that's what I think. So Lions and Commanders. So imagine that becomes the NFC Championship game.
Wow. I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of people would have seen that coming, but I mean, I will say this though, like with everything, I do think ultimately it will come down to the Lions getting the NFC Championship. I think that that's very much a possibility at this point.
Yeah, but I think if it came down to Washington and Detroit, obviously I'd give it to Detroit. They're just a
Yeah,
much, much better team.
same here. I mean, they're built for it. So, I mean, and ultimately, if it were to be a Kansas City and Bills championship game, I would definitely. I want the Bills to do it. They better show up, and I mean their defense better show up against KC because Josh Allen, we know he balls out against KC and he plays some of his best playoff games. It's defense and special teams that have screwed us over the last two times we've gone up against them. But I would say if it comes down to the Bills versus Lions Super Bowl, oh man, if we get a repeat of the game that we saw a couple weeks ago where the Bills beat the Lions, oh sweet Jesus, that's gonna be a fun game to watch.
Oh yeah, and I'm definitely throwing a party for the Super Bowl if that happens.
Oh, I would be
But
too.
yeah, so Buffalo, Detroit, we both said, right? At this point, I'm thinking,
Yeah, and I am hoping it is Buffalo and Detroit because I would love that matchup.
yeah, I mean, as much as I love this idea for the Bills and excuse me, the Bills and the Lions in the Super Bowl, I think if it comes down to it, I love Buffalo's chances, but if I'm being a realist, I think Detroit wins the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Maybe changing my fortunes gives them good luck this year.
You never know. But if it were to happen though, might have to place a bet on that game. And if you're sticking with Detroit and I take Buffalo, we may have to throw some type of wager on it. So,
I consider it depending on the outcome. But listen, Tom, I'm a Bills fan. I love my team, but sometimes I got to put my ego to the side. So I think, and I'm not saying, and I'm not counting out the Bills in that argument at all because
yeah.
they beat them this year. But
Mhm.
that's a completely different animal compared to what the Lions are probably going to end up playing like. Because let's be honest, we really don't know the outcome of the playoffs. So I think with me picking Detroit, I think that's going to change the outcome for the Bills' fortune. Because every single year I pick the Bills, they always choke in the playoffs.
Yeah, good point. So, you never know, but it's going to be fun watching the real season start because this is when you see all the crazy things happen. And we get to see that starting Saturday at 4:30. So, it is going to be fun to say the least. But that being said, of course, we're already an hour in. So, of course, if you're just joining us, welcome. It is, of course, our usual Wednesday night. You got Hanson here. Of course, you got myself. And then if you want to check out some of our other stuff from earlier in the season, you can go on to YouTube or you can go to Spotify, check us out. And, of course, we do upload the episodes as they go fit. And then, of course, on YouTube, we're live. So, you see it as we do it. So that's a good part there. But let's jump into hockey a little bit because I know we have that and we have a little bit of baseball yet to go. So the first thing, obviously, the NHL. What the hell are you thinking with that Winter Classic? Because putting it on New Year's Eve, nobody gives a shit. And then
Oh,
now you want to do two games in Florida, and why?
oh boy. So, oh boy. I'm sorry. Oh my God. The Winter Classic in fucking Florida. Is Bettman on drugs?
Yes,
Can you explain this to me, Mr. Wojak?
Bettman likes to probably smoke whatever Aaron Rodgers gives him. Probably has a wet dream that everything's going to work well in Florida with having two Winter Classic games. And obviously, whatever he smoked probably gave him some weird reaction or something because I do not see this working. Number one, you're already diluting the Winter Classic, so that's problem number one. Number two, why do you have to have more than one Winter Classic every single year?
Yeah, really. Well, one's the Winter Classic and one's the Stadium Series. And as you know, I went to the Stadium Series
Right.
last year at MetLife Stadium to see the Devils and the Flyers. And that was my second outdoor game that I did in my life. The first one was
Mhm.
2018 with Rangers and Sabres. But I don't understand Bettman's logic here. Why would you pick Florida as a Winter Classic? Like, yes, we're open to new ideas, but think of the name Winter Classic, not
Yeah.
Florida Classic.
Right. And on top of it, you're playing one game in a retractable roof stadium.
Yeah, Lone Depot Park, home of the Miami Marlins.
Yeah. It just
Jesus
makes no
Christ.
sense.
Nothing makes any sense. I
Right.
mean, now, granted, the game is going to be taking place on January 2nd. Yeah, January 2nd. And I already looked into the calendar.
Hmm.
That game is on a Friday.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And to think that we need to talk about the other one. This that just happened recently, but we got to talk about this one first.
Yeah.
So, Lone Depot Park, where the Marlins play, a
Right.
retractable.
Which nobody goes to anyways.
Well, yeah, it's because it's the Marlins, but
Right.
people will show up for the Panthers because, for one, they just won the Stanley Cup, and B, they're doing pretty damn well for themselves, and
Hmm.
the Rangers are going to get bitch slapped next season.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
So that's one way of doing it. So yes, Lone Depot Park. This idea is fucking stupid.
It is. And then in Tampa, Raymond James Stadium,
Oh dear God.
the
Yep.
the pirate
So
ship.
yep, 2026 Stadium Series, February 1st at Raymond James Stadium between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Boston Bruins. Why didn't they just do the two Florida teams?
Yeah.
At least it would
Really.
have made sense.
Yeah. And have it in Tampa. You actually have a little bit better following there than you do in Miami.
Or actually, I have a better one. Why didn't they put it at a neutral site, somewhere cool and warm? Oh, I know. How about fucking Jacksonville?
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, imagine having to play at M&T Bank or whatever the TIA Bank Stadium, but they can't do it
Hmm.
because the Jaguars are going to do those renovations for their new
Right.
stadium. But why didn't they do that? Why would you want to put an outdoor game in Tampa for one? And I have to think that both of these games are going to be at night because, if you play it during the day, the ice is going to melt. That's
Yeah.
number one. And number two, how is this going to work? You're talking about putting an outdoor game in quote in Sunshine State in a place like Miami. Like,
Yeah.
I understand growing the game and all that, but if you want to put the Panthers in an outdoor game, put them someplace that's actually going to be cold. Don't
Right.
put them in their own state because that is never a good idea. I remember that
Exactly.
shitty Stadium Series game a couple of years ago
Oh yeah.
between I think it was Tampa and Nashville.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That crashed and burned real quick.
Big time. I foreshadowed that this is going to be similar to that game, but it's
Well, it
almost like
would.
the NHL is kind of begging to end this event with this kind of a matchup. They're like saying, "Please, we want to stop doing the Winter Classic." Well, NHL, you did this to yourselves. You took an advantage of an event that was once, a huge thing in the NHL that's never
Hmm.
been done before, and now you have turned it into a trend where every year you have teams that no one non-traditional markets play in,
Right.
and then I don't understand. I understand not putting Utah in there yet because they don't have a name, but I think once Utah gets a name, then there'll be talks of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Do a game in Salt Lake City, Utah. I mean, that would be a perfect spot for a Winter Classic.
it would be. It absolutely would be. I mean, listen, we literally saw, what was it, a year ago at that point?
Hmm.
At this point in time, it would be 2 years ago. It would be Seattle and Vegas at T-Mobile Park.
Yeah.
That was perfect because it was between two expansion teams that just came into the league,
Hmm.
and you want to showcase both teams, which
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah,
I have no
and they
issue with
had a
that.
good turnout. They had over 47,000 at T-Mobile Park for it, which is great to see. And we've actually been to that ballpark when we were there in Seattle a couple months ago, and it was definitely well worth it.
Yeah, and I'm going back there in May because I'm
Hmm.
going on a cruise in Alaska in mid-May during the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think it's from May 11th to the 18th. I'm going to be in Seattle because that's where my cruise takes place in.
Hmm.
The one day before my cruise, I'm going on a cruise trip, or I'm going to give myself a little trip to T-Mobile Park to see the Mariners.
Nice, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then, of course, if anyone even gave a shit about the Winter Classic that happened on New Year's Eve, the Blues beat the Blackhawks 6-2, but it pretty much nobody even thought about it because it was on New Year's Eve.
I honestly don't understand this. So the Winter Classic hit an all-time low. This one, the 2025 Winter Classic, hit an all-time low in viewership in the history of the event, according to Sports Media Watch. The game was played on New Year's Eve, as Tom says, for the first time ever, due to the NHL not wanting to get into the way of college football playoffs, which is averaging 920,000 viewers across TNT and True TV, marking the smallest audience in the history of the annual outdoor game, with the Blues win, which peaked around 1.2 million in the 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time quarter hour, declined 16% from the previous low set from the year before, which was Vegas and Seattle at 1.10 million, and 48% from the Pittsburgh Bruins game 2 years ago, which was 1.78 million. While the Winter Classic avoided the toughest football competition, it did not avoid football altogether, overlapping with the start of the Fiesta Bowl playoff game and the Citrus Bowl, which featured Illinois, and the latter of which undoubtedly pulled away viewers in host markets, the Blackhawks, or just in Chicago for that matter. And the Winter Classic just had a 2.5 rating in Chicago, down from a 5.8 from the Blackhawks' previous Winter Classic, which was 6 years ago in 2019 at Notre Dame, which aired on NBC at that time.
Good job, Bettman. You're an idiot.
So let me get this straight. You're telling your viewers the reason why the Winter Classic this year flopped was because you didn't want to get in the way of college football and because Illinois was one of the teams in there.
Yeah, makes no sense.
If he wanted viewership, why didn't he just put it on January 2nd?
Right. Exactly. If you want viewership, put it on New Year's Day like everything else is.
Well, again, they said it was because Illinois was in the college football playoff run, but I think any other year this wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
again, the other thing too that we need to talk about with the Winter Classic is it's fatigue. Because how many years in a row are we going to see the Bruins or the Blackhawks in the Winter Classic or
Right.
the Blues at this point?
Yeah.
How many years are we going to get them?
Yeah, seriously, throw some other damn teams in there for a change. Jesus Christ. It's like we
Well,
don't need to see the same teams every single freaking year.
and don't give me this, oh, don't play the Canadian team shit, because you've done the Canadians and you've done the Maple Leafs in the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
And
Throw Winnipeg in there. Throw Vancouver in there. I mean, shit. Throw the other teams in there. It's like, get it going. Hell, throw Ottawa in there for all I care.
yeah, really. You need something. Don't recycle the same teams. And I think that's something that Bettman is failing to see is you're not going to always market the Blackhawks. This is not the 2010s Blackhawks where they had Jonathan Toews and Patrick Haynes.
Yeah.
Because at least at that time, they had a showcase where they can actually show off the players. Like, the only benefit was Connor Bedard. And you know what's really sad too? And this is really becoming a trend, is if you look at the Chicago Blackhawks record, they've only won one outdoor game.
Yeah.
One. And it wasn't even the Winter Classic.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, it's like, Batman, why are you putting shit teams in these games?
I really don't understand. I have a better idea. Why don't you put a Winter Classic in Canada? Oh, that's right, because you fucking hate Canadian teams.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, if anyone from Quebec is watching, the Quebec Nordiques deserve to come back. I've said that many times on this show. They deserve to come back. Just Batman, the only way you'll ever get the Nordiques, probably, I'm convinced at this time, is if Batman's dead.
Yeah, really.
Or if he finally retires.
Yeah, or how about this? How about Colorado? The Avalanche would have been perfect. You could have had an outdoor game at where the Rockies play. That would have been a perfect Winter Classic game.
Yeah, could have done an outdoor game at Coors Field, or you could have put one at Mile High, where the Broncos play.
Yeah, or I have a better idea. Why don't you have the Avalanche play Utah? Yeah, that would be a perfect Winter Classic.
There you go. There you go. You have the relocated Arizona Coyotes, known as the Utah Hockey Club, and you have the Colorado Avalanche. That would be a good matchup to see, honestly, because Utah loves their hockey team. And yes, their hockey team now is no longer Arizona's, which, of course, apparently now Arizona's trying to get back the Arizona Coyotes. And it's like, good fucking luck on that. So.
Oh, yeah. We definitely got to talk about that for sure. Because I
Yeah,
actually have that article, which is
yeah,
funny enough.
and our friend Brad says he's playing for an NFC upset. His prediction: Washington goes all the way for the Redemption Bowl.
Oh, that's
Interesting
ballsy.
pick. Interesting pick.
Absolutely. So Tom mentioned the coyotes, right? Because
Oh yeah.
we all thought ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. We
Oh
thought
yeah.
this,
Apparently they're
right?
not.
No, apparently you're right. So apparently, a new supervisor's chair at Maricopa County, Arizona board has formed an advisory committee of quote political and business leaders to focus on bringing the Coyotes NHL team back to Arizona, according to Craig Morgan. And mind you, the public county officials in Maricopa County are now Republican, and the previous people were Democrats. So they wanted to be cheap labor bastards about the Coyotes, but now you have Republicans that want to bring the team back, but people have to just agreed on it because they had a vote a year ago on it or whatever it was, and they said no, we don't want the Coyotes here because they bring no venue. Now,
Hmm.
unless you actually bring them back and they're actually good, then okay, I'll accept it. But they haven't done shit.
Right. Right.
They haven't done shit. So the newly elected Maricopa County Board of Supervisor Chair, Tom Galvin, that's his name, is leading the operation. He said, quote, losing the NHL Coyotes was a low point, and I cringed when local politicians took glee in the demise of our team. And I've had several meetings with the commissioner about with Commissioner Gary Bettman, and he looks forward with working with us to identify an owner and the best location for a world-class building. Bettman also confirmed that he met with Galvin before Christmas through a Zoom call and to discuss the formation of the committee and future
Oh
steps.
Jesus. Okay, so here's the thing. Arizona, number one, you already have an arena that you can go to, and it's not that 5,000 seat mullet arena. You could go to Gila River Arena, which is where you used to play, which you built for yourselves. And just renovate it. That's all you need to do. You don't need a whole big ass brand new arena, which would then be the third arena, which they're already pissed off about the fact that they have to renovate the Footprint Center in Phoenix, which that cost a lot of money to do. They're already pissed off about having to renovate Chase Field, which is where the Diamondbacks play, because that needs some redo. Just renovate your current building if you're going to do it. That's why you built it.
That's basically how it works.
Exactly. You don't need a brand new place.
And
I mean,
plus, go
yeah,
ahead.
and I was gonna say, and both of us, we went in that renovated Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle back in October. That was a good renovation.
Exactly. And yet, how many times on the show have we said that the Coyotes needed to move from Arizona? We knew that Bettman was stubborn to the core about that team, where he was at the point where he pretty much had no choice but to move them to Utah. And then you move them into a non-traditional market, and then you go, wow, we totally missed out on 25 fucking years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Utah's performing well.
Yeah, really. And it doesn't even get better from there too because now they're selling out every single game. Now, I know their stadium is not the best. It's very much similar, at least from my experience, from when the Islanders used to play at Barclays Center
Yeah,
because half of the ice was cut off. Like that statement.
yeah.
Utah is dealing with that right now because again, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't the Jazz getting a new stadium with the Utah No Names?
No, they're renovating the Delta Center. So what they're going to do, they originally were looking at a brand new arena for both teams. They decided instead keep the Delta Center in its current location because it's in a prime downtown location in Salt Lake City. What they're going to do is they're going to renovate the lower bowl, so they're going to make it to where you're going to have some nice steep seats, and they're going to make it usable for both hockey and basketball. So basically, by the time that everything's done, they should be able to get um, for hockey, probably closer to about 16, 17,000 in there, which is actually not bad. I mean, that's similar to what Vegas has for their capacity at T-Mobile Arena.
Well, I mean that makes sense. Plus, Las Vegas is a big hockey market now.
Yeah, and plus the Delta Center just went through some renovations over the last several years, and they renovated their upper deck, they renovated their club spaces, they modernized the newer scoreboard that they already put in back about 8 years ago. They upgraded it last year actually to be even more state of the art, and they actually are known. And here's a little known fact: they are the very first arena to be known as at least a full one, like 70 megapixel based arena with the clarity of their scoreboards and everything. So, I mean, they're state of the art in terms of the tech side of things. And then on the flip side of it, the arena itself, they said it's very sound structurally, so it can easily go through additional renovations as needed. So, I mean, the
Yeah.
bottom line is Salt Lake loves them, and they actually have a following, which never happened in Arizona.
Well, I think in Utah's defense, I don't think they were expecting to get a new team in their state. I don't think that they were mentally prepared for a new hockey team to be coming into their state
Hmm.
because all those renovations that you were just talking about just now,
Yeah.
most of it was to appease people that were fans of the Jazz. So instead of it now being a one-team state, it's now a two-team state. So
Yeah.
now you have both fans of basketball and hockey getting
Hmm.
involved, and
Yeah.
people have been begging for years to get a team in Utah, and now they finally get one. And
Yeah.
by some point, I think in April during the Stanley Cup playoffs, or maybe down the road, I'm not sure. We're gonna find out the team name. So whatever they name the team, they're gonna sell a lot of money and a lot of
Hmm.
merchandise, and that's gonna give them more money to work with for
Yeah.
renovations down the road.
Yeah, and they already made some changes at the same time. I mean, of course, they got the new locker rooms all set up. I mean, they already had like the ice surface and all that stuff situated. But one of the first things they did is that they have the Utah Jazz logo on the outside of the building, which of course is that music note. Now what they also did is right next to it they now have the Utah Hockey Club logo. So they basically made it both buildings. And on top of it, think of it this way: that building that they play in, the Delta Center, opened in 1991, and it was originally known as the Delta Center. The Delta Center, well, Delta Airlines gave up their naming rights like over 15 years ago, and it then transitioned into Energy Solutions Arena, which then became Vivint Arena, and now Delta wanted their naming rights back, so now they got their naming rights on the building again, and that
So they
never
want.
happens.
Well, there you go. So there's that.
Yeah, they wanted to be involved and they wanted to pump a crap ton of money into it, which I will say it's I can endorse flying Delta because we've flown them before. I actually that's who I flew when I went to Seattle and back, and we spent the week out there, and good airline. I like them.
Yeah. So I think the whole thing with them bringing back the team is a fucking joke. I don't is again what these politicians have to realize is not everybody in the state of Arizona agrees with this idea, and hence why they moved in the first place. Because Bettman was so pushy about keeping them there, and they had to play executive hot potato this whole time. And now you get a brand new market that you had right under your nose for the last 30 years, and you were
Hmm.
too arrogant to look through that and say, wow, look at Utah, they're thriving. And now you circle back on the Arizona and
Yeah,
you want to bring back the Coyotes. The question is, it's not, the thing is, it's not even a guarantee. It's not a guarantee this
exactly.
happens. They just say it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean, oh, we definitely have to have it happen. It's
Right.
just there for the taking. But do I want them back? No. As much as I love that idea of nostalgia for hockey and all that, I love it. But in terms of this time frame, it's not going to work.
Exactly. And quite honestly, let the Utah market build right now. That's what they need to focus on. Build that market, get the name for your team, and get that to be a great hockey market. And they're going to have some good rivalries. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But build the hockey market in Utah. That's what you got right now. So absolutely, sorry Arizona, you had your chance. But talking about some other things that have happened in the hockey world, and then we only have like a few minutes left, so we'll get into baseball too. But obviously, the USA won the World Championships, and they came from behind to beat Finland, which that was beautiful to watch.
USA, USA,
USA,
USA.
USA. Yep. And then of course Frank Petrano is going to stay in Anaheim, and Arthur Kaliev is going to the Rags.
Yep. So Frank Vertrano, and there's actually that's something that came out about this, and it's very interesting. So Frank Vertrano is getting a 3-year, $18 million extension with the Anaheim Ducks, and the deal is structured with significant deferred salary, dropping the hit or the annual average value from 6 million to around 4.57 million, and the cap hit is lowered to adjust the present day value of deferred payments. And Verdrana will get the 3x3, or will get 3 million in 3 years, with an additional 9 million in deferred salary at 900K in the 10 years starting in 2035 system at that point in retirement. Listen to this. This is where things get very interesting. So, because of Frank Vetrano's new contract with the Ducks,
Hmm.
it has something to do with the CBA because the CBA expires next year in 2026. So Ellie Freeman actually came out with this. He said the NHL will discuss eliminating deferred salaries in contracts as part of the negotiations for the new collective bargaining agreement. The current one expires in September of 2026 and does not include any sort of language or prohibition regarding deferred salary in contracts. And Friedman also reported that while the league did approve the Fortrano Otani-esque contract, so they're saying that this contract is similar to
Hmm.
Shohei Otani's in hockey standards, which has half the salary deferred until 2035 to be paid in a 900,000 installments for over 10 years. It was quote not crazy about the deal, and that it will seek to eliminate such contracts in the new CBA discussions.
Interesting. And for some reason, I hear someone running around outside here. So, and neighbors are making a little bit of noise in this place, but it's all right. But that being said, also too, just a quick recap on the games going on right now. Vancouver and Washington are tied at 1, and Ovechkin is only 23 goals away from breaking the NHL record that's held by Gretzky. And Chicago is actually beating Colorado 2-1 at the beginning of the third.
Yep, and the next game after that is Florida and Utah
Yep.
on TNT.
Yep.
That's coming
And
up.
Calgary and LA was postponed due to the wildfires, so that'll get rescheduled at some point. And then of course tomorrow night, Buffalo's back at it. They're gonna play Ottawa in Ottawa, and right now that's gonna be a shit game to watch. And then of course Boston and Tampa play tomorrow as well. Pedersen's out for the Canucks against the Capitals, and basically from there. We'll start taking a look at what's coming up potentially for the draft in some later episodes. But that being said, let's jump into baseball to round it out, and we only have probably about another 10 minutes left. So, right now, first, of course, thoughts go out to Brian Matuz's family. He ended up passing away unexpectedly, so unfortunately that did happen. And then also, one of the things is Gavin Lux. No one really thought too much about this trade, but he got traded to the Reds.
All right, so before the show started, I said I had a very interesting story about this trade.
Hmm.
So the story goes like this. On Mondays, usually around 5:30, as you know, I play the banjo and I love it.
Hmm.
So I was at my lesson with my instructor, and she doesn't watch sports, so that's not the point. So I'm with my instructor and I'm learning how to play the Jurassic Park theme.
Hmm.
And I'm learning the notes as I'm tuning. And all of a sudden, while she's doing some research for the songs, kind of put it all together,
Hmm.
I turned to check the time because I wanted to make sure we were off on time or whatever, because I get an hour.
Yeah.
And I get a notification, and it said from MLB, it says on Twitter, breaking news, Gavin Lux to the Reds. And I was in complete shock. I said, what? And
Hmm.
so I'm like, I can't do this now. So I have to wait till after the lesson to find
Hmm.
out the details. So Jeff Passan for ESPN actually was the one that reported this. So Gavin Lux was traded from the world champion LA Dodgers to the Cincinnati Reds.
Hmm.
What are the Dodgers getting, you may ask? They're getting outfielder Mike Sirota and a competitive balance round A pick, which is around number 37. Wait,
Ooh.
so you get a pitcher and a pick. I could have sworn in baseball,
I thought it's usually a one for one deal or something.
yeah, or prospects go in deal. I thought you're not allowed to trade picks in baseball.
Right. I guess we're wrong.
But I think in the Reds' defense, they're having a sneaky good offseason.
Yeah, they are. They are. And then on top of it, the Mets are still doing some interesting things because I mean Tanner Scott met with them this past week, and Pete Alonso, for all intents and purposes, is still a Met for the time being.
Yeah, but he's not going to agree to a long-term deal or a short-term deal, and he's almost certain to get an opt-out and a short-term deal in free agency. But Scott Boras, as you know, is one of his clients, and we talked about him before, where
Hmm.
how he keeps the free agent, and it's happening now with Pete Alonso. It didn't happen with Juan Soto, so they go with Plan B, which is Pete Alonso. So Pete Alonso, is just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and he wants like a 9-year deal for like 257 million, some crazy number. This
Right.
is you're literally watching Scott Boras in action with his clients. And
Hmm.
Pete Alonso, I believe, is one of the top three free agents left out there for teams to snag on. And the Mets are not getting Anthony Santana from the Orioles. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And it's going to be interesting, but I do want to see what happens because if Alonso were to go to another team like the Mariners or the Blue Jays,
Hmm.
I want to see if the Mets make a trade for the replacement. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. For sure. And then, of course, Justin Verlander is no longer with the Mets. He actually signed a 1 year deal with the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, he's been gone for a while now. He's old. He's 42, so have fun, San Fran. You're gonna
Yeah,
need it.
exactly, exactly. And then, last but not least, I'll just throw this in there too. This is actually related to the Buffalo Bandits. They actually continue to be having a good season. I will actually be going to my second ever Bandits game on the 18th when they play the Philadelphia Wings. And usually, when that happens, those two teams is a bloodbath. They hate each other. So that
Oh
part's
yeah.
good. And actually, the good thing is right now, I mean, Buffalo's off to a good start because number one, I mean, they have great coaching to start out with, but also their 42-year-old goaltender Matt Vink has a leading 6.85 goals against, which is actually good in lacrosse. You want a low number like that. And he's getting an average around 49 saves per game,
That's pretty good. I
which
mean,
is
for what you're
really
telling me.
really good. And his goals against is actually over 2 goals better than the next best goaltender. And he's saving over five and a half more shots a game than any other goaltender, and his save percentage is 6% better than anyone else. So the fact that he's performing at that high level is huge. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing my second ever game with it. And I might actually check out some more as we go forward. But right now the Bandits do play against the Toronto Rock on Friday the 10th, and then they play here at home against the Wings on the 18th, which is definitely good to see. And what I can say altogether. I mean, they have a pretty decent schedule coming up, so good to see it. But actually, it'll be nice too. My niece is gonna be doing some cheering at the game, so it'll be that's how I'm going to it, and I'll probably see a little bit more as we go forward. But I mean, great to see them still continuing in a good way, and I mean that's a big plus. And also on top of it, I like the fact they're finally putting the team on TV. So the local CW station and also actually ESPN Plus or ESPN2 actually had one of their games this season. So good to see they're finally getting the coverage that they should have had all this time.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely happy that you're able to see the Bandits play because I don't get that anymore. I don't even have a team. I don't even have a team anymore. Number one, I went to one New York Riptide game,
Hmm.
and it was the second to last game. I think they played the Saskatchewan Rampage, I believe they're called. I don't remember, but
Saskatchewan Rush.
Saskatchewan Rush. Thank you. And Rob Hazu and I were there for Road to 32 episode, which didn't really get a lot of
Hmm.
views, but I did it because, well, it was a lacrosse game, and I don't really
Yeah.
watch lacrosse. But I will say it was an interesting time for me. It definitely wasn't the best event I would go to because
Hmm.
every time I was at a Rush game, or not a Rush, I keep saying Rush now. Every time I went to a Riptide game, the one time I went, um, they played loud music over the
Yeah.
screen, and you would think you want to hear the players, and like in hockey, they shut off the music when they start playing, but in lacrosse they keep it going and they
Yeah.
try to get people engaged. I don't like that. I rather want to just pay my ticket, watch the game.
Hmm.
That's what I'm there for. I don't like the
Yeah.
distractions to go with it.
Yeah, Major League Indoor Lacrosse. I mean, it's definitely more of a party atmosphere. That's like one way to describe it. And I noticed that when I was at my first ever Bandits game a few years ago, and I personally enjoyed it. I mean, it's one of those. It's been a long time since I've been able to get back to a game, but I mean, it's definitely something I would check out more now that that they're getting the coverage, and especially now I want to see more of it. But as of right now, Buffalo Bandits are the top team in all of the National Lacrosse League at 3 wins. They haven't had their fourth game yet, but they're also league leading with 20 goals against, so they have the lowest goals against with them at this point. Really, besides them, the next two teams to round out second and third: Georgia Swarm at 4-1, Philadelphia Wings at 3-1, and Saskatchewan is 3-1. So we have that. Vancouver is actually still 2 games back because they're only at 2-1 right now. But I will say this though: the absolute worst. And yes, Vegas has a pro team in National Lacrosse League. They have the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, 1-4 right now, and they have the worst goals against in the league at 74.
Hey.
So that kind of gives you an idea of where they're at. But no, Philadelphia and Buffalo, that's going to be an interesting matchup. I mean, have been two of the best teams historically in all of the league existence, and actually Buffalo, surprisingly, is actually one of the top 5 teams in terms of total attendance, and they actually still managed to get over 15,000 in the KeyBank Center for for National Lacrosse. So it's good to see, but it'll be interesting to check that out. So looking forward to seeing that, and just want to give them a shout out. I know our friend Trevor does a lot of work with the Bandits now, so hope to see him there, and if not, Trevor, definitely come up to my place and we'll have a beer.
Well, I definitely want to throw something at you. If you want me to, if you can get me the parts, I'll make a deal with you on the show. If you get me footage from the game, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
What? What am I doing here?
Yeah, you want me to do a road to 32?
Bingo. Because you're the only guy on the show that lives in Buffalo, and you have an opportunity to see the Bandits. So what I was gonna say was, if you put it through Ice Drive and you give me the parts, the narration, the preparation, all that shit, like you would see in any other Road to 32 video I've done,
Mm-hmm.
I could put it together for you, and you send me the voiceover, and I will put it together for you and make an episode. What do you say?
There we go. And I will try to get to some more games this season with it also. I know it'll be a little tougher for footage on the first one because I am with family on it, but at the same time, tickets are cheap, so it's definitely worth checking out a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I actually have something else to say myself, and
Okay.
that is the same day. You said January 18th you're going?
Mm-hmm.
So the same day that you go to the Bandits game, and I want that footage. I want to make a video for you. I want to make a Road to 32 episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, the same day that you are going to the Bandits game, the Bandits game, I'm going to a New York Rangers game.
Interesting. There you go.
Yeah. So the only thing that's holding me back is the schedule for the NFL playoffs. Because if I buy my ticket now and I later
Mm-hmm.
regret it, I'm gonna really just really not want to go. So I'm waiting until after the first round of the playoffs in the NFL
Mm-hmm.
for the schedule. Because if the Bills are playing on a Saturday in the second round, knock on wood,
Yeah.
if they play in the second round against, Baltimore or, you know, whoever makes it through the second round, let's be honest. Um, I was saying is that depending on the schedule, I'm going to a New York Rangers game on January 18th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that will, in fact, be a Road to 32 episode.
There you go. Good stuff. And yes, there will be a Road to 32 somewhere for football next season. We ain't saying it yet.
We
But
don't even know who it is. But I think it's only appropriate that we tell the audience real quick who the opponents are. Because I think we do this every year when the opponents
Mhm.
come out in 2020, whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
So our candidates for Road to 32, and as of now, there are 5 teams that are on this opponent schedule. And
Mhm.
Britt's like, I don't want to talk about it until May, but I figure I bring it to your attention.
Yeah.
So the 5 teams that are on the schedule for next season are Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Carolina, Cleveland, and Houston.
Ooh. Okay.
That's who's on the schedule for 2025. So top 3, or of all the teams, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Carolina, Cleveland, or Houston, who's the one that stands out the most?
So if I had to choose a top three out of it, right now, I would say would love to see a game in Pittsburgh. That's the one stadium I haven't been to yet, down in that area. I've been to PPG several times, so I mean that's fine. But would love to see a Steelers game in person. Then I would say Atlanta would probably be one of the cities I would give a nod to, and definitely check that out. And then I would say potentially Houston is the other one.
I'm kind of on the same boat. And for me, Atlanta is probably my number one because how many years are you going to really get a chance to see the Falcons? Because
Hmm.
for one, Mercedes-Benz Dome, whatever it is, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, whatever you want to call it, that's
Hmm.
one of the newer buildings in the NFL. That building's not even 10 years old.
Right.
So, and it's already hosted a Super Bowl. So I think for Atlanta, I think it's one of the few retractable stadiums that I've been to at least. I think the other one I went to was Indianapolis.
Hmm.
And that stadium I said was okay. It was definitely a decent stadium. But as far as Atlanta, I would love to see Michael Penix Jr. I
Hmm.
want to see Drake London. I want to see Bijan Robinson. I think that makes the most sense to do
Yep.
Atlanta.
Yep.
But also, taking into consideration, you could get a tour of CNN, Coca-Cola.
Hmm.
What's another big company in Atlanta?
I mean, those are probably two of the biggest ones I can think of.
Yeah, the Coca-Cola factory in Atlanta would be a hell of a lot of fun to do, I think. Hell, even if I don't like CNN and I would just wear a MAGA hat at CNN, tell them to fuck off.
Hmm.
I think it would be funny to do a tour of CNN.
Yeah.
But but who knows? But as far as that, I think Pittsburgh would be really fun, considering that's like one of the last few uh teams that Britt and I would have to drive to unless you
Hmm.
come.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that
that's only 4 hours from where I live, so that's an easy drive down there.
for us it would be like 5.5 because my
Yeah.
brother Dane lives in Hawley, Pennsylvania, which is 2.5 hours
Hmm.
north of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So and as
Yeah.
you know, you went to Philly with me this past year.
Yep. And as you know too, I had an apartment in Pittsburgh for a short time, so I'm very familiar with that area and definitely know like the good places, not good places, and all that. So.
Yeah, definitely. And Houston, again, Houston. I've never been to Texas, but
Mhm.
Houston
Yeah.
would be a really nice stadium to go to, considering that venue has hosted multiple Super Bowls. And I definitely would be most interested in seeing CJ Stroud. I
Hmm.
definitely want to see Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Joe Mixon.
Yep.
But, Houston, who knows? Houston could very well be on the
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, it could be, and that would be my second time in Texas. My sister actually lived in Dallas for a year, and this was back in like the late 2000s. So that could be another option as well. And we actually have some breaking news out of San Francisco. So the San Francisco 49ers are expected to offer Robert Saleh the defensive coordinator job and bring him back.
That's not shocking because they already know what he can do.
Yep. So
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 there's
that
that.
did come out. So that's being reported actually in several different areas now, and including NBC Sports. So it is definitely legit. It's probably going to happen. So
Yeah.
with that being said, and it's kind of funny too. I see. Oh, wifey called me too, so I got to talk to her in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, I think yeah, for our first show back, was there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
Well, I definitely wanted to comment about Cleveland and Carolina really quick
Oh Jesus.
before. Yeah. I'm fine with skipping Carolina because I'm waiting on the news for the new stadium.
Yep.
So when that comes around, I definitely want to check it out. Why would I want to go to an assy looking place like Bank of America Stadium, which is one of the poorest aging stadiums in the NFL? Like,
Yeah.
why would I want to go there? Like, the other thing that would benefit me with Carolina is my wife's best friend, Carrie Ann, and her husband, Steve, live in Raleigh, which is, I think, about an hour, maybe 2 hours from Charlotte. So that wouldn't be a bad ride at all. So I would have
Hmm.
some sort of place to stay in Charlotte if that's the
Hmm.
case, or just in North Carolina in general.
Yeah.
And the Browns, who gives a fuck? That's number
Yeah.
one. And number
Exactly.
two, and number two, they just approved their new stadium. But I think you said it that Cleveland, I think, is having trouble getting approval for the stadium or something like
They're
that.
invoking the Art Modell rule, so they don't want the team to leave the city limits of Cleveland. I'm like, Brook Park is a suburb of Cleveland, but apparently the city is that petty that they want to invoke the Art Modell rule.
Yeah, true. And for Miami, I think we're holding. I mean, Brent and I have already said we're not in any rush to see Miami because they're in the division.
Yeah,
So,
me either.
And we've already seen the Patriots, and we saw the Jets multiple times. And fuck the Jets. That's
Yeah,
all I'm just gonna say.
exactly.
And fuck the Patriots.
Yep,
So
exactly.
I mean, if it came down between Gillette Stadium or MetLife, I obviously would pick Gillette because MetLife Stadium's a fucking dump.
Mhm.
So I would just say that. So overall, Atlanta's my top choice, then Pittsburgh, then Houston.
Okay, cool. Well, as we get closer, obviously we'll let you know what ultimately happens. But other than
Yeah.
that, I think hey, it's a good show back. So and next week we've got episode 200. So a lot of fun stuff that we're gonna be doing with that. Obviously, any news that comes out this week, we'll let you know. But that being said, we'll wrap up for another week. So, of course, everyone who is watching, thanks for watching us. We appreciate it. And, of course, Brad, congratulations again. Our friend Steph who watches, get well soon. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will see you next time.
Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025.
Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.